Pinocchio becomes a little donkey. It was morning. The sun was bright and the day was warm. Pinocchio jumped out of bed and went up to the mirror. And what did he see? He saw 2 long ears on his head, and they were donkey's ears. He began to cry, but it didn't help. Then he began to pull at his ears. He pulled and pulled, but his ears only grew and grew. The little puppy who lived in the next room heard his cries. He came into Pinocchio's room. He saw the donkey's ears on the puppet's head and asked him, "What's the matter with you?" "I'm ill, my dear little puppy." "Very ill. I'm very sorry for you," said the puppy. "But I must tell you that very soon you'll not be a puppet, and you'll not be a boy." "Then what shall I be?" "You'll be a little donkey." "Oh, poor little Pinocchio! Poor little Pinocchio!" cried the puppet. He tried to pull his ears out of his head, but they only grew longer and longer. "My dear boy," said the puppy, "what can you do?" "Nothing." "I must tell you this. All boys who are lazy and don't want to go to school become little donkeys." "Oh, what shall I do? What shall I do?" cried the poor puppet. "I'll find Candlewick and break his bones, because he brought me to this town." When Pinocchio got to his door, he thought of his donkey's ears. The other boys mustn't see them. He put his cap on his head, pushed his ears into it, and pulled it well down over his nose.
Pinocchio begins to bray like a donkey. When Pinocchio came to the house where Candlewick lived, he knocked at the door. "Who's there?" asked Romeo. "Me, Pinocchio," answered the puppet. "Wait a minute, and I'll open the door." At last Candlewick opened the door. And do you know what Pinocchio saw? He saw his friend Candlewick with a cap on his head. The cap came down over his nose. "Is my friend ill like I am?" thought Pinocchio. "What's the matter with you, my dear Candlewick?" he asked. "Why have you that cap on your head? Why does it come down to your nose?" "Well, you see," answered Candlewick, "I fell down and broke my leg. So the doctor told me to put on the cap as medicine. And you, dear Pinocchio, why did you pull your cap down over your nose?" "I fell down and broke my arm. So the doctor told me to put on this cap as medicine." Oh, poor Pinocchio! Oh, poor Candlewick! Then they said nothing for a long time. They only looked at each other. At last the puppet said to his friend, "Can you show me your ears?" "Why not?" answered Candlewick. "But first, my dear Pinocchio, please show me your ears." "No, first you, and then me." "Well," said the puppet, "let us take off our caps at the same time." "All right," answered Candlewick. "Listen," said Pinocchio. "I'll count." And Pinocchio began to count quickly. 1, 2, 3. At the word 3, the two boys took off their caps and threw them into the air. When Pinocchio and Candlewick looked at each other, they began to laugh, and they laughed and laughed. Suddenly Candlewick stopped and said to his friend, help me, Pinocchio." "What's the matter with you?" "I can't stand on my feet." "And I can't stand on my feet." "I can only stand on my feet and on my hands," said Pinocchio, and began to cry. He and Candlewick began to run round the room on their hands and feet. And after that, what must a donkey have? Do you know? Yes, a tail. Soon Pinocchio had a tail, and Romeo had a tail. Their tails grew and grew, and the two boys became real donkeys. They couldn't talk now, they could only bray like real donkeys. Hee-haw, hee-haw. Suddenly they heard a voice. "Open the door. I am the old man who brought you to this country. Open the door at once, I tell you." They opened the door, and the old man came into the room and said to the little donkeys, "Good boys, you bray very well. Come with me now, I'll sell you for good money." The poor donkeys stood there with their heads down and their tails between their legs. What could they do? Nothing, nothing, nothing.